Yeah, thank you very much for joining. So, a couple of quick introductions. First and foremost, my name is Dave Prince. I am the head of Microsoft Solutions here at Academia. I've been here for 10 years now, working in kind of multiple guises, predominantly surrounding the Microsoft stack, hence the job title. But in the wider industry, probably coming about kind of 22, 23 years now. So as you will have gathered by now, I work for a company called Academia. We are a technology group based here in the UK. We were founded in 2003, so it was our 21st birthday at the beginning of this month. So if we were in America, we'd be legal to drink now, which is always good news. And as Academia, we have been a partner of Microsoft since 2009, and we've been working closely with the Charities buying group for quite a few years as well. So Charities buying group have effectively consortium organisations set up to effectively help charities get the most out of what their needs, what they need. So whether that be technology, utility bills, internet connectivity, whatever it might be. So today we are here to talk about Copilot for Microsoft 365, and in particular how that can help you as a charity or non-profit gain some extra efficiencies in your day-to-day life or your daily work, and then also how Academia can help you get there. So if you've been keeping an eye on the tech news of late, I'm sure, it'd be very hard not to have come across a lot of hype and a lot of kind of buzz around AI. And what my aim here today is to try and condense all of this down and give you a bit of an insight into Copilot for Microsoft 365, which is Microsoft's AI play, but also kind of condense down a bit more as to how this can help you. So I'm going to start with an extremely short introduction to AI, and apologies, there might be some scary looking images there on the screen. AI is not new. So as a concept, actually, AI has been around in our popular culture for coming on 100 years, actually, depicted by this character third from the left here, someone called Maria from a film called Metropolis in 1927. So the idea and the concept of AI has been around for a long time. Now, when we think about AI, sometimes, and these last couple of years have gone to show that there is a wide kind of degree of perception surrounding AI. So sometimes people say AI and you think, oh, Skynet from Terminator, and effectively how this super intelligent system has changed its way of thinking for kind of negative connotation. Now, yes, when AI did come around, there was a lot of talk that could this happen. Now, this is why we have the principles of AI in place. This is here as an assistive tool to help us. But at the same time, you've got the likes of kind of R2D2 or potentially kind of Baymax there from Big Hero 6. It's a friendly AI. So you can see that over the last kind of 100 years, AI has been perceived in many different ways. So as you think about how we use AI, but also how we have been using AI, it's worth noting that AI has actually been part of our daily lives now for well over 20 years. So I'm hoping that some of you on this session will be familiar with the wonderful Clippy on the left-hand side here. So the little tool built into Microsoft Office from Windows 95, it was there to help us get the most out of platforms like Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint. And also in our daily lives today, we still use AI, and we have been using AI for years. So things like predictive text or autocorrect within our phones or within Microsoft Office. These are forms of AI, all the way down to its simplest form. Here we have a game called Reversi, that basically you are playing against a computer. Computer is trying to predict your next move, trying to block you from winning the game. And then Siri, for example, within iOS these days, and of course you have the likes of Cortana, which has now been replaced by Copilot in the Microsoft ecosystem. So we have been using AI for a long time. If we then move on to how we are using technology today, so first and foremost, if you aren't currently a Microsoft 365 house, this is a very Microsoft focused slide. Copilot is a Microsoft technology, so this is what we will be focusing on. If you are using other tools out there and you are not currently leveraging Microsoft 365, don't worry, we have something for you at the end here that will help you bring this all together. But when we kind of back to this, when we talk about how we use this, we use the likes of Outlook and Teams to keep in touch with people, whether this be our colleagues, our partners, our clients, our communities. It also provides a way that people can get in touch with you. And then we're using the likes of Word, PowerPoint, and Excel to create our content. So whether this is documents in Word, for example, like letters, flyers, meeting agendas, meeting minutes, we'll create presentations. These could be presentations about your organization, the work that you've done within your community, future plans to board of trustees. And we can create spreadsheets to keep track of financial information or service statistics, event registrations, and so on. However, when we're using these tools, we're typically using them in isolation. For example, if you're in Word, you are in Word to create a document. If you're in PowerPoint, you're in PowerPoint to create a presentation. So we do use these in isolation today. Now, what we're doing with Copilot for Microsoft 365 is we're still using the same tools we already have, and we're still achieving the same outcomes. But by bringing Copilot into the mix, we're bringing them all together and using Copilot to help us orchestrate our content creation and also helping us keep on top of our day and ultimately help us save some time. Just a quick heads up, there are multiple versions of Copilot. So you have Copilot for the web, which is effectively like ChatGPT. You have Windows Copilot. So if you're using a Windows 11 device, for example, you might see a little Copilot button on your taskbar. You have Copilot for security. All of these different Copilot iterations. However, the one that we're focusing on today is that second one down, Copilot for Microsoft 365, which focuses on the productivity side of things. So in a nutshell, if we were to take a look at what Copilot is here to help us achieve, it is here to help us increase our productivity, to drive efficiencies. It's also here to help you create great content. Now, I don't know about many of you on this call. I, for one, spend a lot of my life writing documents, a lot of my life spent kind of creating PowerPoint decks. And I'd say once every now and then, I'll come across a situation where I need to write a document and I open up Word and I'm presented with a blank page and I have complete writer's block. I'll sit there scratching my head thinking, right, how do I start this? What do I want to get across? This is where Copilot can come in to help. Just by prompting Word, for example, to say, this is the type of document that I want to create, it will go away and create this document. Is it going to be perfect? No. Is it going to cover 100% of what I want to do? No. But the idea here is that Copilot will create a very, very good draft that you can start working on. So instead of you having to type out everything and then go back and look at it, Copilot can make a draft for you. And then you, instead of having to type it all out, can go back and review it. Does that meet my brief? Does that meet what I'm trying to get across? Copilot can also help summarize your work. So whether this be email or messages or meetings. So a few examples here. Let's say you are in a meeting for the entire day. You come back to your desk and you are 50 emails behind. Copilot can help you condense and summarize this. Also, meetings. We can join meetings with Copilot enabled, and Copilot can sit in the background and transcribe the meeting. It can even pick out context and emotion from this. But ultimately, what Copilot is here to do is to help us turn long and complex tasks into more bite-sized and efficient ways of working. And this will also help us reduce digital debt. Now, what do we mean by digital debt? Well, we know that there is a certain amount of work we need to do to get our jobs done. And we have a certain amount of output to create from that. So whether that be creating customer documents, sending outbound emails, creating presentations, or maybe even running reports or generating reports in the likes of Excel. So they are the things that I know that I need to do to get my job done. However, what we also have is an additional set of incoming requests. So I know what I need to output, but at the same time as I'm creating and generating these files and this data, I'm also getting a lot of emails coming in. I'm getting a lot of Teams messages. I'm getting a lot of people saying, Dave, can you do that? Can you do that? Can I have this, etc. And what we find here is because your working hours remain the same, but you've got all of these different ways that people can request things from you on top of what you're doing already. This is digital debt, and it can be very easy. It can be easy. Sorry, let me rephrase that. You can become overburdened quite easily with the amount of kind of stuff you're generating, along with the amount of stuff that you're receiving. This is digital debt. Now, a phrase that a few years back, actually, if someone said it to me, might have irked me a little bit, because we all think we are working smart. And the phrase work smarter, not harder really comes into play here. And this working smarter piece is the bit that Copilot can really come in to help us here. So going back to our example earlier, we as an employee, we are using Outlook, we're using Teams, Word, Excel, PowerPoint. Layering Copilot over the top of that, what we can start to do is interact with these applications, these services in a different way. So for example, in Outlook, going back to the example I gave you a moment ago, I'm in a meeting for a day and then I'm out of office the next day. And I come back into the office and greeted with 100 emails. Sometimes the actual admin or the time taken to catch up with your emails alone can almost take a few hours. With Copilot, we can just very easily click on summarize, and summarize will go away and say, right, since you've been out of the office, this is what you have missed. Here are the key points from email chains that you have been looped into, whether that be directly or CC'd into. But also, and if I had £1 for every time this happened, I'd be very rich, is there could be an email chain that has been going on for a month before I have been looped in. So myself, a colleague of mine and a potential customer, let's say, have been going back and forth for a month. And sometimes what I would be on the receiving end of is a colleague just CCing me in and just saying, Dave, FYI. And I'm looking at that thinking, that's 22 emails I've got to read through a month's worth of back and forth. By opening the email, Copilot will present me a summarize button that will go away and effectively bullet point this email. So this is what this person said, and this is when they wanted it by, and this is what it's been committed to. So it's taking that task that, like I said, could have taken me a couple of hours and really condensing that down into a click of a button, and maybe a minute or two to read. The same logic applies with Teams. If I've been out the office, I can come back in, I can say, Teams, what have I missed in the last day? And it will summarize, regardless of the amount of contacts who have contacted me or the amount of groups that I might be a member of. It will say, this is what you have missed. Again, giving me a brief on what I've missed without me having to read all of these separately. And then we enter the realms of the productivity side of things. So within Microsoft Word, I can, and I will demonstrate this in a moment, say to Word, go and create me a 3-page proposal about academia's service. Now, that could be anything. Whatever your mission statement is, whatever your cause is, replace academia services with whatever it is you want, and it will go away and start generating you this draft. If you don't necessarily like that draft, or maybe, let's say, for example, another colleague of yours has written this, but you're not too happy with the wording or the phrasing, we can select the text, we can invoke Copilot, and we can just say, just reword this bit to make it sound a little bit more formal, or potentially a little bit less formal. Within PowerPoint, the same thing. We can say, PowerPoint, go and make me a slide deck about the world. And it will come back, it'll see the brief about 10 slides, and it will, about 30 to 40 seconds later, give me a decent draft of a presentation all about the world. But what we can also do, and this is where you've got the likes of ChatGPT, let's say, that kind of work almost in isolation. There are plugins, there are extensions to the likes of ChatGPT, but effectively you are asking it a question and it is just chucking a load of text back at you. The power of Copilot comes with the integration it has across the Microsoft 365 tools. So within PowerPoint, I can say, here is a Word document that I made earlier. Go and make a presentation based off my Word document. So it's pulling information in from within your organization. Then finally on this, we have Excel. So I'm on the receiving end of some pretty horrendous Excel spreadsheets. With tables within Excel, I can just say to Copilot in Excel, summarize this and tell me the event that had the most registrations, or show me the event that had the most attendees, or create me a pivot table, or make me a graph based on all of this data. So things that usually could have taken, let's say, 15, 20 minutes or more, depending on the size, to do manually, we can do now just by clicking a button and asking it or telling it what we would like. Now, one thing I can't stress enough here, this goes back to the AI conversation earlier on and about people's perception of it, is that Copilot is not autopilot. Copilot will not go and do things without you knowing. Copilot will not sit in the background and carry out a load of tasks it thinks might make your life more effective. Copilot needs to be invoked. You as an individual need to actually tell it to do something. And then moving into a couple of examples about the charity and non-profit use cases. So if we think about where Copilot can really come in to benefit yourselves here, again, you've got that high level, top level brief. It is here to make your lives easier. It's here to simplify existing tasks and functions you might do and give you back time. A couple more kind of to the point examples. We work with some charities who are actually using it to help them submit and potentially even draft some grant or funding applications. So think about it. Maybe you are on a receiving end of a document and this document is 14 pages long. And you know, right, it's going to take me a day to read that and then another half day to respond to it, for example. In this case here, you could have Copilot summarize it for you, pull out all of the pertinent information, and then you can go away and say, right, create me a draft document based on this bid submission. And what we're seeing is actually this really helps in the non-profit and charitable space to quickly turn around more grant or funding applications. So where you might used to have done one a week or one every 2 weeks, depending on the size of it, you could potentially be looking at 5 a week with the assistance of Copilot. Again, just touching on that point about summarizing long documents. We within academia have a bids and tenders team, and they can sometimes receive documents in excess of 85 pages. And what we're beginning to do is actually use Copilot to help us condense this document down. What are the actual core requirements in amongst the wider document? But also going back to our Excel example, we can analyze data sets. So if you are pulling in data sets from any kind of partner organizations or let's say governmental bodies that you're working with and they present this data to you in Excel, you can actually have Copilot quickly skim through all that information to give you effectively just help you save a lot of time. Now, as I mentioned earlier on, Copilot for Microsoft 365, it is a Microsoft product. And for that reason, it is built around the Microsoft tooling. So your Word, your Excel, PowerPoint, OneDrive, Teams, etc. So if you are already a Microsoft 365 house, fantastic. You're already quite a way into being able to unlock the power of Copilot. If you're not, again, we can cover something a little bit later on this. Now, Copilot, as it stands, is an annual subscription. It is a once a year payment. It's not a monthly installment or monthly payment side of things. And as it stands at the time of doing this, and I understand there are some discussions surrounding this, but there aren't any publicized non-profit or charity discounts. Copilot is Copilot. And the reason behind this is it's an investment. Ultimately, this is saving you time. And the key word there being investment is that can you just turn it on? Absolutely, you can. Do you need to make sure that your organization is suitably set up for the use of Copilot? Absolutely. But seeing it instead of just this is how much it is, the conversation should be, this is actually how much time it'll save us. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to do something very risky. I'm going to do a live demo. I say risky because within tech you have the demo gods, and sometimes they shine on you and sometimes they don't. So I'm going to hope in this instance here all works out well. So hopefully now you should see Microsoft Word on my screen. So this is a brand new Word document. So going back to the example earlier of kind of the writer's block example I gave. If I come along here and I open up my Copilot prompt, it's saying to me, what would you like to write? Just give me an idea as to what you're looking to achieve here. Now, in the interest of time, so that you don't have to see me type this all out, I have got a couple of pre-built prompts, so to speak. So I'm saying here, write a report on how the impact of house pricing within Milton Keynes can affect the rate of homelessness. Now, no surprises that I live in Milton Keynes here. So what this is going to do, just based off that one line, is it's going to go away and it's going to create me a document. Now, you can already see from this that it is putting this document into sections. So you've got your executive summary in bullet points there, bit of an introduction. So kind of talking about some of the challenges and some of the kind of influencing factors behind, in this instance here, homelessness. And it's going to give us some methodology. So it's going to say to us, this is what this is based off, and this is where this information is from. Now, if you don't necessarily like that first draft, you can you can select to keep it if you do like it. Alternatively, you can just say, you know what, regenerate that. I want to see something different. It will go away. It'll reanalyze its data sets. It'll go back and look to see where it's pulling information from and maybe kind of broaden that or decrease it a little bit, depending. So again, I'll just give this a second here so we can see, just giving us some information here as to the reasons behind homelessness and some of the circumstances that lead to it. Now, what we can also do as well is if I take a look at a neighbouring borough, I'll just wait for this to finish very quickly. And once this has gone, which should be any second, I'm just going to say keep that. I'm going to enter a couple of lines there, and I'm going to ask Copilot again, different question. There you go. Add in a section that actually compares this issue with that faced in Luton, so a neighbouring borough. And what that'll do again is it'll go away and it will pull through some information on here. So we will give it a second. You can see it is not a finished article, but it will certainly help you get a long way into the potentially research and the wording behind what you're looking to achieve. So I'm going to say keep that. There we go. So new section, comparison with Luton. Milton Keynes is not the only urban area. Like Milton Keynes, Luton suffers from a shortage. There's your average house prices, which is actually 8.7% higher than it was before. There's your average annual earnings, etc. So it's going away and it's pulling in all of this information. Now, there were two examples of using Word where we as an individual here are the author of the document. But actually what we can also do, let's pretend we are on the receiving end of this document. We can invoke Copilot again, and we will say, what are the key statistics within this document? So again, we're pretending here that we are the recipient of this document. This has just landed in your inbox. There's a lot of words to read through. We can open up Copilot here and it will go away and pull through the key statistics. So there we go. We can see that the pricing within Milton Keynes has increased. We can see that the national house pricing, sorry, beg your pardon, I actually missed what I said there. The causes behind it. It will go away and summarize this particular document. We can also see it's pulling in information from elsewhere. So we can see here the report suggests that Milton Keynes could learn from experiences and good practices of Luton and other cities and towns that have successfully reduced homelessness, such as Manchester, Brighton and Bristol. So it's going away, it's getting the context from the document, but it's also getting the context from the wider web. Now, if you're wondering where this is coming from, you can find out as well. So you can see down here, we've got our section 5, little citations here. So this isn't just going to give you information and just hope that you take its word for it. It is telling you where this is coming from. So if I were to click on number 5, it would take me to that section, but it would actually tell me the source of that particular document as well, or article in this case. Now, if I jump back into a different PowerPoint presentation here, I can, again, brand new presentation here. I'm going to say, create a 10 slide presentation from house pricing and homelessness in Milton Keynes. So this is me referring to another document that I already have. So I'm not having to have them both side by side and compare and kind of take the content that's within Word and copy it across to PowerPoint. This is actually just saying, I've already got a file that sits here, go and make the slide deck off that. Now, this is a bit where before testing, actually, I had a similar issue where it didn't, for some reason, because it's such a new file, it hasn't fully found it yet. So I do have another example in the background, which is just create me a 10-page presentation covering the issues with Milton Keynes that may increase the rate of homelessness. And what we'll do is we'll give this a moment or so. It's going to look at my prompt. It's going to pick out the key words that I've put in here. And it will, in a moment or so, start generating me this content. Now, because this is in PowerPoint, it could pull through some images. It's going to be creating multiple slides. It can take a little bit longer than doing the kind of comparative within Microsoft Word, but we can see along the bottom here that it's beginning to do something. Here we go. Now, I've got no idea what the content of this particular slide is, but I'm going to open this up and you'll see that just by me typing this in, I have a fully fledged PowerPoint with what I would deem to be suitably themed pictures, but it's also adding in animations as well, which is the impressive bit. So it's taken the content that is found on its search, it's pulled in this information, and also one key thing that you won't see on this particular slide. There you go. So we've got issues about housing shortages, rising rental prices, economical challenges, unemployment rates, lack of affordable healthcare, social issues, all of these things that are driving towards homelessness. And it has just done this just by me giving it what is probably about a 20 word sentence. What it also does, and this is the real kicker, is it creates speaker notes. So you don't necessarily have to create this PowerPoint presentation, walk through it all and kind of go, right, now I've got to work out what I'm going to say. It will actually generate the speaker notes for you as well. So there's just a very quick example. And I've done this on the fly. Like I said, I did kind of pre-build a couple of example prompts just to save me having to type this out. But actually reaching this level of a Word document and presentation could have actually taken a couple of days potentially. And like I said earlier, this is a draft. You can still come in here. You can tweak this to your heart's content. You can change the wording, do whatever you want to it. So that is a very quick example of Copilot in action. Unfortunately, I can't show you how that would work within Teams and within Outlook, because that would be scouring my Teams and Outlook, which of course there's some kind of confidentiality issues surrounding that. So yeah, they do all work fantastically. And the real kind of thing to bear in mind about Copilot is that it is getting better and better by the day. So what I've just shown you there, in a few weeks, few months time, could be tenfold. So we've spoken now about what Copilot is, and one of the kind of questions that might be springing to mind is, how do you get there? So we break this down into 4 key steps. You've got your planning, you've got secure, you've got pilot, and you've got launch. So if we break this down into a little bit more detail here, from a planning side of things, Copilot isn't for everybody. Within your organization, you might have 25 employees or 25 volunteers, depending. But actually, maybe not everybody needs Copilot. Maybe only certain functions within your organization need Copilot. So have a step back, have a think about the workloads that your staff are currently doing on a day-to-day basis, and just see if you can identify some places that Copilot could really come in to help. What you'll also want to do is, going back to my point earlier, Copilot is an investment. So you should be at least determining some success criteria. Do you want to see a reduction in that person's time to turn around certain tasks? Are you currently facing an organization challenge where maybe there's been a change or a trend in how you operate or how your wider community operates? And you can actually see Copilot being beneficial there. They are some examples of success criteria and how you can take a task you have today or a task you might have in a while that you have allocated X amount of resource or time to, and go, actually with Copilot, we could reduce that significantly. What we also move on to, well, what we'll move on to next is security and governance surrounding Copilot. Now, this alone probably is the most important thing when we're talking about using Copilot, and I'll touch on why. So Copilot, effectively, think about it for any of you who've seen the old Pinocchio film or the recent Pinocchio film with that little Jiminy Cricket thing sitting on its shoulder. Copilot follows the person. So what I mean by that is, me as an employee, let's say, for example, I work in your marketing team. I should only have access to the data that resides within the marketing team or my own personal stuff. Now, will Copilot go away and start digging stuff out of HR or payroll or finance? Not if you don't have access to it. Copilot follows the user. So here, Copilot will be able to help you access content, message history, chats, whatever it might be within your teams or within Teams conversations and files. It will not give you insight into other people's teams. Much in the same way, OneDrive data. Your OneDrive data is your data. That is your documents, desktop pictures, files that relate to you. It will not give you access to other people's OneDrive data, unless, of course, they have shared that with you and they've explicitly said, I allow you to access this folder within my OneDrive. And then the same logic goes for SharePoint and Outlook. So it can help you plan your day. It can help you look at your emails. It can help you find communications between yourself and, let's say, a trustee. But it will not find communications from that trustee to other colleagues of yours. So Copilot follows you. Now, where this is particularly important, I'll give you a little analogy in a moment, is your user account, your Microsoft 365 account. Over time, you might have been given access to things. So a case in point I use here is maybe once upon a time you were working in the HR team, or you were working kind of with your let's say recruitment or employment. So you had access to information on staff. But let's say you've now moved. You've moved from HR and you've pivoted into the marketing team. But actually, what happened at that point of you moving was people never restricted or took away your access to HR. You've kind of almost as a person, you've forgotten it's there, but your account can still access it. So the analogy I give here is, just, you'll humour me for a minute. You're walking down a corridor, and as you're walking down that corridor, some of those doors are open and you can hear conversations happening inside. But that's fine, because the conversations happening in that room where the door is open, they're talking about the weather, because us Brits love the weather. We're talking about the Olympics. There we go. A bit more pertinent for the moment. So you're not hearing anything that you shouldn't be hearing. As you continue down that walk on the corridor, some doors are closed. And behind those closed doors are conversations that you shouldn't be hearing what's happening. That could be HR related, it could be financial related, whatever it might be. Point is, that conversation is happening behind a closed door. You cannot hear it. Now, third example here is out of the doors that are open, some of the conversations are probably conversations you shouldn't be hearing. But The people in that room haven't secured their conversation by closing the door. So you as a bypasser or walking past can hear that conversation even though you shouldn't, because that room that they're having that conversation hasn't been secured properly by closing the door. That logic applies with Copilot. As Copilot is following you and meandering its way through Microsoft, through your OneDrive, your Outlook, your Teams, your SharePoint sites, if HR have closed the door to that HR team, Copilot will not go in there. It cannot go in there. If the door is open to something, but again, that could just be it could be an events team, for example, an internal team talking about kind of success within the organization. That's fine because that's a public forum, public community. Going back to my example earlier on, is if that door is open to something that you shouldn't see, you have the ability to see it, then Copilot can use that to pull information through. So going back to our example earlier on, someone who used to work in HR moved into marketing, but the HR door was never closed. It is that we've got to make sure is in a good position before we turn Copilot on. Just a couple of top level bits on Copilot again from a security perspective. So just to reiterate, Copilot respects the permission that the user has. So if I have Copilot turned on, Copilot won't go into places that I cannot access. Also, one thing to bear in mind here is everything is enclosed within your organization. So Copilot will not send any of your organization data, whether this be actual data, whether that be the prompts that you type into the system to get Copilot to do things. It will not send that outside of your environment ever. Third point down is if you are currently using or contemplating using things like sensitivity labels. So sensitivity labels being the kind of, is this a confidential document? Is this a public document? Is this highly sensitive? For example, we can classify our data. Is that if you are working on a public document, but Copilot pulls information through from a sensitive document, then in turn, Copilot will make the document you're working on sensitive because it's pulled through information from a source that is marked as sensitive. Little bit of a technical phrase here, LLMs, bit of a mouthful, large language models. This is effectively the brains behind Copilot, and this is the system that learns what you're asking it and adapts to based what you're querying. Now, one key thing to bear in mind here, much like the point above, into your system will not go outside your system, and it will not be used to train other organizations' LLMs. And then finally on here is once you finish with a Copilot request, so whether this be in PowerPoint, Outlook, etc., when you close that Copilot tab, it will delete the prompts that you've put in there. Again, just taking that security one step further. So when we talk about securing and governing your data, we do recommend that you map out your current estate. Just take a look at the file shares, take a look at the team sites that you've got in place, and just sanity check those permissions. Now, it can be a little bit daunting, and I'll cover in a moment what we can do to help you with this, because as with all things, they grow organically. When you're an organization, let's say, for example, of 3 people 10 years ago, and you were using this platform, maybe not 10, maybe 5 years ago, and you're using this platform, you couldn't predict that your organization would have grown to be 50, 60, 100 people big. So therefore, your organization, your kind of use of technology will have grown organically. And yes, it can be a daunting task to kind of go, right, where do I start with this? This is where we can help. And then what we look at doing is what we refer to as oversharing. So going back to that example earlier, someone in marketing having access to HR, that is oversharing. That person in marketing should not have access to HR. And then we pilot Copilot. So once you've got your plan, you've got your success criteria, you've taken a look and you are happy and comfortable with the security and governance surrounding your data and how Copilot would interact with that, we can then move on to the pilot stage. So going back to our example earlier on, where you pick certain workloads or you pick certain people who you might want to dip your toe in the water, so to speak, with Copilot. And maybe you've got 5 people working in your marketing team, but actually one of them you think would be a fantastic test candidate to find out how that marketing team could benefit from Copilot. So before going away and investing in a Copilot license per user, maybe pick 1 person, 2 people from each department, whatever it might be, and just have them almost do a bit of a kind of daily logger. For example, today I was doing this the old way and it took me 3 hours to generate this. Today I used Copilot and it took 7 minutes. Try and determine that return on investment before you roll it out to the wider group. And much like anything, sharing and collaborating is a really kind of key thing to help us develop here. So even if you are in marketing, but you've also given someone in finance and someone in fundraising access to Copilot, have a little working group, have those 3-4 people collectively get together once a week, once every couple of days and say, I've been using it for this and it's worked like this, and I've been using it for that, and share those successes, because it'll help plant the seed for other people as to how they can use Copilot to benefit their role. And then finally, once you're happy that your pilot group has met your success criteria and they've come back with absolutely glowing references to say, this is a game changer, this is going to help us so much, determine your path to launch. So what we mean by path to launch here, so you've completed your security checks, you've finished the planning and preparation, and you've actually completed that pilot. You have everything you need to then roll out to the wider organization, whether that be everybody or whether that just be, I don't know, not the entire organization, but more than the pilot. But as I mentioned earlier on, Copilot is constantly evolving. Excuse me. So this isn't the end of the road. Just because you've now turned it on, don't let the momentum and the working groups and the feedback loops you've got in place, don't let them fizzle out. Keep them going, because what this will do is this will further instill the use of Copilot within your organization. So like I said, keep those stakeholder meetings going, keep those forums and communities running. But also, don't be afraid to revoke licenses where they're not needed. If you issue them to someone because they've asked for it, but it turns out they're not actually using it, you can remove that license and give it to someone else. Sorry, tickle in my throat. Now, you've obviously sat here and listened to me for 45 minutes now, so thank you very much for listening to me so far. Hopefully you've now got a good idea of Copilot and, more importantly, how you can use it in your organization. How we can help here is twofold. If you're already using Microsoft 365, what we can do is you can rope us in, you can say, we want to do a Copilot readiness assessment. That Copilot readiness assessment, I'll cover in a little bit what that entails, but it's effectively, where are you today and what the considerations or changes you need to put in place to successfully accommodate Copilot. And then we've got the Copilot adoption project. So this is a bit that once you're happy, you've got the seal of approval that your environment is ready for Copilot, we can help you roll this out across your organization. So whether that be providing demonstrations, hosting or chairing your feedback committees, putting the relevant feedback forms in place, we can help you with that. Now, alternatively, if you are not, and apologies, that red doesn't look particularly nice on that blue, but if you are using alternative or alternate productivity solutions, but Copilot has intrigued you enough that you want to take a step into the Microsoft world, we offer a solution called Microsoft Springboard, Microsoft 365 Springboard, beg your pardon, which effectively is, right, your organization, no Microsoft 365, you want to be on 365, we will set you up with everything you need to succeed with Microsoft 365. Now, this is predominantly designed for the smaller charities and the smaller non-profits. Obviously, the larger the non-profit or charity organization is, the more complicated it could be to roll out. But again, we can help you here. Springboard in particular is designed for those smaller non-profits and charities, but by all means do reach out to us if you are not using 365 and you're interested in taking that step into 365. Effectively, what you're doing here is just moving down one step from if you're already using 365. You'd move on to the Copilot adoption, because actually what we would do is, whilst we're setting you up on Microsoft 365, we would make sure that you effectively are ticking all the boxes that would circumvent the need for the readiness assessment. So we can go straight from giving you 365 to enabling Copilot for you. So multiple different offerings we have here. Again, this depends on where you are in your journey. If you are, like I said earlier, already using 365 and you're just in the planning stages, or you want to talk to someone, or you want us to sanity check your environment for you, we've got the planning stage up at the top here, which is where our Copilot for M365 readiness assessment comes in. We can help you with your security by doing a data security and governance implementation workshop. We can also help you with the branding. Now, I showed you earlier creating a PowerPoint presentation and a Word document. Now, what that did was, when I created that just pulled through from generic stock branding. Actually, what you can do is we can create templates for PowerPoint, Word, so on, and put that into a content library for you. And actually, when Copilot generates its stuff, it will generate it in line with your branding. So logos, themes, color palettes, etc. And then at the very bottom there, you've got your enable, so the actual Copilot license itself. But then we can provide, as I mentioned earlier on, the adoption project, which is effectively everything. It is that work group initiation, it's talking to you about the security considerations, it's the planning sessions, the feedback form, and helping you achieve that wider rollout. The readiness assessment itself, we provide you with a report of, this is kind of what we are analysing here in the left. This is why we're analysing it. This is where your kind of ideal outcome would be, and this is what your actual outcome would be. So, for example, here, things like written data policies, it's actually quite important as an organisation you have data policies. So things like acceptable usage policies or end user agreements, and we will, as employees, not share data externally that we shouldn't, for example. So even just simple things like that, just again to protect your organisation. What we will then do is we'll grade you accordingly. So based on what we've picked up from the assessment, we will say, right, here are the key areas. This is where you are today. Actually, if you don't follow this step, this is the potential risk you might encounter. And then as part of it as well, we do give you the complimentary kind of guide to help you plan, pilot, or launch. Now, that some of you might actually benefit a lot from that guide, and you might read that through and kind of go, right, I now know exactly what I need to do to get from A to B. But if not, if you don't have an IT support, or if you need any assistance whatsoever, do feel free to reach out to us, because we can effectively do all that for you. And just finally, probably one of the most garish looking slides on this, my apologies. This is just an overview of Academia Springboard. So again, if you're a customer, or beg your pardon, if you're a organization who is not using Microsoft 365 today, then what we'll do is we'll quickly get you up and running with Microsoft. It helps you promote your branding as well. A lot of organizations out there still using Gmail, Yahoo, for example, as outbound communication. This can really go a long way to help your brand. It ensures that your users and your staff have got the latest, greatest productivity tools. So again, the latest version of Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Exchange Online for secure email, Teams for communication and meetings. It's industry-leading security that will protect both your user, your data, and your device. We can also go as far as implementing what is known as zero touch. So let's say, for example, you have a new member of staff joining your organization and they live 200 miles up the country. And instead of having to have a device shipped to you and you install all of your stuff and box it back up and send it to them, we can actually do what's called zero touch deployment, where you could come to, let's say, ourselves as Academia and say, right, someone in Newcastle needs a new laptop and we want it to be set up in the same way as all of our other laptops. We can do that for you without even unboxing it. And what we also provide as well is training. So whether that be technical training or end user training, and then we have the option for support should you need it. So depending on your charity non-profit's needs, we can provide you with kind of support options where you might want to kind of bank of hours with us, for example, just to add to ask the odd question or get support here and there, or you can just go for an underlying support agreement. So Academia Springboard, if you are not already a 365 customer, not using Microsoft Stack, are wanting to, or if you are wanting to use Copilot, then Academia can help you on this. And then finally, this is the final slide. Thank you very much for all of you who have stuck with me so far. Following up from this, if you do want to reach out, if you do want to get in touch with us, there is a QR code on the screen which will take you to a booking form. It allows you to book in some time with us just to have a quick discussion, have a quick chat, whatever it might be. And some more old-fashioned routes as well, so phone number and email. And then not so old-fashioned, we are everywhere on social media. So that's it. I sincerely hope that was a beneficial session for you all. We